that made them go, wait, you said HIPAA laws? You know,
Is that with one P or two?
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
In today's episode, we're going to talk company website security because something happened recently that's pretty interesting. So we'll look into that. But before we do, let me remind you to, if you like this podcast, head on over to iTunes, give us a review and a rating. We very much appreciate it. And also share it out on your favorite social media. So, and we'll remind you to do that again at the end because we know people can't do it while they're driving.
That's
So,
right.
But anyway, my name is David Sims, and I am with HIPAA for MSPs.com. And joining me, as always, is Donna Grindle of CardenCompliance.com.
We do love
How's your week been, Donna?
very, very hectic, but good.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah, we're recording this. Tomorrow is my birthday.
Oh, very good.
Party!
So you are the 18th anniversary of your 39th birthday?
You know, I don't have a lot of those hang-ups about age. I joke and say that I'm pretty sure that every day from the time I was 16 to 18, my mother told me I wasn't going to see the next day. So, hey, I'm here.
You're just glad for the next day, right?
Well, yeah, you know, it was questionable for a long time. So, you know, I got a reason to party every year. It was tough being with me, I'm sure.
As if you need a reason to party.
That's right. Well, you know,
So,
with our job, we need some distractions.
oh, yes, we do. It's it's draining just to make compliance fun.
It is. It takes a lot of energy. And so here we go. We're going to try to. This one's kind of interesting though, and it gets both of us all worked. You know, I don't know exactly.
Spit it out.
I know what's going on, but I don't know exactly what we'll say because we never do. But I bet you rant in this one, so let's do it.
You think I do?
I think you will. There's something will set you off in this one, maybe.
Yeah, probably so. But we're going to talk about website security, which is not something we've talked about really.
At all. Yeah.
Yeah, at all. And it's one of those things where I think businesses overlook, and that's probably why we're talking about it today.
Yeah, I mean, there's some HIPAA implications, but all businesses should worry about these things. So everyone and all your websites, people forget you have multiple ones. So the big reason, and there were two things that happened recently that just came out that said to me, you should come up with something because we keep running into this, and then these big news items made it even more pertinent. So first was the Panama Papers.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, and you know it's a huge story around the world, but in the U.S. it's not really getting as much attention. I guess we're too busy worried about the election or whatever, or the Kardashians' latest madness.
At least they're still a thing.
I know, it's just constant. But this Panama Papers deal is huge, and it's implicating world leaders. I mean, we're talking, you know, the corruption of the people in Russia, and of course, Putin isn't anywhere near any of this. He's just close to all the people that are in it in Russia, and I think David Cameron and in Great Britain, it shows up that offshore accounts. So, you know, it all has to do with this law firm that's been helping very wealthy people hide their money. And you would think if I am helping very wealthy people hide their money, I would worry about security. One would think. And maybe these guys do, but they didn't worry about security of their websites. And that's how all of these papers were released. And they basically got all of the files about all of their clients.
Yeah. Well, I think people look at security differently in that they don't necessarily see where all the pieces fit. You know, they're looking at, okay, we've got antivirus and we've got threat management devices, and we make sure that the doors are locked and all that. And then in the meantime, they have a web server sitting there that gives everybody in the world access. to the inside of their business. It's just a matter of, are you stopping the access at the point where it needs to be stopped?
And do you even know what's on it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'll let you tell about your next thing that happened, but and then we'll get a little deeper into the Panama paper incident and some other things. But what else kind of sparked the discussion here on this?
Well, yeah. So I've been reading about the Panama papers, and the reason that they were leaked is because there was no security, and the security updates weren't loaded on all of these layers and layers. They were using old stuff. And so I then just like out of the blue get an email from our marketing company that works with us, BBR Marketing. Shout out to Bonnie and the gang. And Bonnie is the owner of the company, and she's the one that also had me on her Business Radio X show earlier in the year. But they have, people have them do websites, and they'll subcontract, and, they worry about how pretty it is, right? Because everybody worries about the prettiness and the SEO and all these other things. And then in there somewhere, one of the people in the company made a mention of, hey, we need to do something about not worrying about the HIPAA laws and be able to interface with our patients. And because BBR knows about us, that made them go, wait, you said HIPAA laws? And
is that with one P or two?
Yeah, we had to talk about that briefly too, because oh my God, I fell out. But that's another story. But the marketing firm, because they work with us, and they still talk about they've never worked with a company that had such a well identified market. It's very specific, the things that we do. But they knew to ask, and of course, here we go down the line, and now everything stops because they've got to figure out how are we going to secure this information. But if it weren't for them working with us, there's no way they would have known to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They really, it uses a secure connection. We're fine. But they, immediately stopped, and, clearly now they may be sending us a lead if somebody's asking their marketing firm about making sure their HIPAA laws are avoided. That they're not stepping on themselves. So because I had the Panama Papers story about websites, and then I had out of the blue people asking about HIPAA laws on their website from my marketing company, and all of the website problems that our clients have had and that we've read about other cases that involve HIPAA or just any business, then I said, we got to do this. We've got to have a conversation about this because people just don't pay attention. They don't even know they should be paying attention, is what I think.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They don't understand the complexities of what they're asking for when they ask for a website. And like you mentioned, people are all about user design and user experience and SEO and all these other keywords and buzzwords and acronyms, but they don't think about, okay, what are we actually storing on that server or that website, and how are we going to protect that?
Yeah, and how do we maintain that? Because so many people, they go to get a website, and then they're able to say to the designer how pretty they want, and here's some examples, and we want our data to do this, and we worry about SEO, and the designer can make that happen. But they don't understand the technical workings. They just understand the rudimentary pieces in a lot of cases. They know how to use WordPress or Joomla, Drupal. There's still people using Front Page.
Oh gosh.
that. But at any rate, they know how to use these tools, and they know these steps to follow, but they don't understand the technical workings in the background of all of these things they're building. And they build the website, and they, sell hosting, but that's it. It's done. And they don't do security on the front end of, just the setup isn't where they don't worry about security. And then they don't manage the thing moving forward. Nobody touches it. They just go in and update the website.
Right. So it's akin to here's what I tell people on websites, because my IT company offers websites. and I have to explain to people a lot of time, is that websites are digital real estate. And it's the exact same as you going out and buying or renting a building and putting the name of your business or practice on the outside of it, turning on the open sign, locking the doors, and walking away. Why would you do that? If you come back in a year's time, number one, nobody can interact with your business because you lock the doors. Number two, the place is falling apart because there's been no maintenance and upkeep. And you probably didn't realize that somebody smashed in the back door and stole stuff out of it because nobody's been there paying attention. And it's the same thing. It's just in a digital format.
Yeah. And if something happens, and when we talk about something happening, it is somebody else gets control of your website and does things with it is most often what it is. And sometimes they bring it down, they hold it hostage, all of those things. And no matter what your business is, if your website is hacked, it can ruin your reputation. People can't find you. Mm-hmm. Your site can distribute malware or the big one, ransomware, which we've talked about before. And
I've seen them be redirected to porn sites and everything.
Oh, my God. We've seen so many things happen. And then when you take it a step further, because today everybody's worried about the patient portals, and generally you have a site for a business, and then on there will be a link or a login page that's embedded to take you into the patient portal. And then the patient portal is being generated by someone else. So nobody's even asking them how they're securing it. So yeah, okay, it's your EHR company, but have you asked them the questions, or are you just assuming it? So I ask the questions because I want to know. I mean, it's my data, it's my patients, and ultimately I'm going to be the one at risk. And yeah, they have some, but nothing like I do. So you got to know where the information is being stored, how's it being secured, where it's stored. Do you have any idea how bad this could be if even all you have is an embedded link, but then somebody takes over your main site and they put a keylogger kind of controls in there, and all of a sudden now they're going into your portal. If it's not set up properly, things like that could happen. Dun, dun, dun. And worst of all are the cases like we'll go into a few cases of things. There's the story we've talked about before on the breach where the oral surgeon gets the call on a Saturday night from the father of a patient who is getting all upset because his son's information has been indexed from his website where he filled out some registration information. And then that registration information wasn't stored securely at all. And the IT company, who was HIPAA compliant, had built the website for them, and they didn't make sure that the data they collected was secured. Nor were they sure of anything else. And we have, like you talked about, them being redirected to porn sites and stuff. We had one account, it was a law firm, and if you did all of the things that should make you find them, and they would be at the top, but all the description was about, those pharmacy sites, we'll call them, buy your drugs here. So you would search the things, and they would get to the top because all their SEO worked, but then the actual data you got and where it sent you were to pharmacy sites because somebody had taken over how it all looked. And, we got a call from a client because, again, you got to worry about these web designers. The site went down, and it was because somebody had hacked it. And because the web designer wasn't a technical person, they just couldn't fix it, Right. And it was just down for months. And, we've had them be pointed to fake traffic for others. And, we found a client who had their site, they couldn't get it updated by the designer who had done it, and they were vetting other ones, and they're talking about looking at the design. And I was like, did you ask them about security? Blink, blink. And you don't want these designers who don't give you the admin access. What if they just disappear? Because a lot of these guys are fly by night.
Oh, Lord. Okay, you gonna get me on a rant.
And we're off. So now let's talk about the things you should worry about. Hit it, David.
Well, just in that vein of what you just brought up, I cannot tell you how many times I have seen people that hired somebody to do a website for them, and that person either disappears, goes out of business, holds the site for ransom, or offers to sell it to them later on when they decide they want to use a different hosting provider. Yeah, we'll sell you your website to you for, $5,000, even though you've already paid for it. You don't own it. You basically leased it, but you didn't know that. Or they own your domain. So that's sure, we'll give you your website. And your website's nothing but a bunch of files, but we own the name. We own the .com name.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
Which, there's so many pieces that are working together here. And I see this happen a lot because it's a huge problem within the IT community when we look at people doing websites. So you need to make sure when you purchase a domain name, you should be the administrative owner of that domain. And you can have somebody else as your technical contact, but you need to own that domain name, or at least have a documentation that you own it, or it'll be turned back over to you or something. Because I know when clients come to me, I buy the domain and all that, but then I turn around and I put it in their name. Because if something happens to me or my business or whatever, I want them to be able to continue to use their domain and their website and all that. But that's a big problem.
Yeah, and you don't even realize what you're doing. They'll sell you something where you have to use their hosting, and they've developed some quote unquote internal tool to develop the website, and they'll use that. And the only way for you to keep your website up and running is to pay them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't move it. So you have to just start over, even if you have the domain name. So they have complete control of everything. And then they're not taking care of it on the back end.
Mm-hmm. I have a attorney client. They paid somebody to do it. Actually, they didn't pay anybody. It was a client that was going to do a website for them. And I'm assuming maybe it was some bartering going on, but I don't know that. But the person got the domain. They paid for the domain for 10 years. And then about 2 years later, after they built the website, they moved away and disappeared. We have no idea where they're at. Can't get in touch with them. The phone numbers that they listed don't work. The email that they listed doesn't work. So they've got a website that's been sitting out there for 9 years now and not been touched. They can't get to it.
OMG.
And so when people Google their law firm, that site comes up. Now, they've built another one since then, but that other site's been out there for so long, it's been indexed so many times that it comes up first usually.
Wow.
And, it's like you said, it's built on front page. Many, many, many years ago, it looks awful. The information is not even accurate anymore. And there's nothing they can do except to wait for that domain to expire after a decade and then try to buy it again so that they can finally get in there and do something with it.
Yeah, as soon as it hits the expiration date, I think it frees it up and you can buy it.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, so you've got to have control of your domain.
Yes.
But that can make things go horribly awry. But what really causes the problems, like the Panama paper, is none of the software was up to date.
Right.
And understanding your website, there's a reason you get somebody else to do it usually. Because even if you use some of these tools like, what is it, Weebly or whatever, where you can build it yourself.
Yeah, Wix and there's a few other ones.
Okay, you have no idea how many layers sit underneath that. And, we manage our website and it gets on our nerves. But, we have a process that we help clients with their website. We tell people, look, I'm not a designer. I'm not a marketing person. I'm a technical person. And you need both. Because if they build it on WordPress or you better know what they build it on too. I'm just saying. That's question number one. But in the case of the Panama Papers, they found when people started doing research on how could this have been hacked, and so much data was, it's like, imagine a law firm where every one of their clients, all of their files were released publicly.
Yeah.
And so how could this happen? And so everybody's been looking at it. So they had their website was in Drupal, and it wasn't up to date and it was written funny. And so, and that's, you have Joomla and Drupal and WordPress. Again, that's what happens when geeks get to name things. They had Apache, and these are all layers. So you have Apache, which is your web server, and it wasn't patched. And then the Drupal and Joomla weren't patched, and it was using Oracle database instead of the MySQL database. And so, but nothing was patched. And then they went looking at, they had a login for Outlook Web Access to the Exchange server, and it looks like it's using possibly Exchange Server 2003, which isn't even hosted. And if it's using 2007, but it all looks old. Everything looks old. Nothing was being updated. They weren't spending money on technology.
Right.
And we say it over and over. You need a technology plan and budget. It doesn't matter what your business is. You need one.
Yep.
So, at any rate, we just went through a big update. We use WordPress and you and I both were exchanging messages just this week about an update to one of the tools that we have, a plugin that it's a great update. We're really excited about what they're doing, but it's causing problems on some of the websites because, they're adding in some new layers. But it's an intrusion prevention tool.
Mm-hmm.
And, talk about what we see when we look at, whether it's Brute Protect or WordFence or whatever, we see what they're doing to us. This is a thing that I think people don't understand either. When you talk about you set up the business, you put the sign out there, you lock the door and you walk away. What they don't know is how hard. It's just all around it are criminals.
Yeah, I get at least one email a day. I'd probably venture to say it's probably closer to half a dozen. I get an email from my website that says there was an invalid login attempt from. It gives me some information to go on, but every single day I have login attempts to get into my website. And I'm not talking about just my big membership site. I'm talking about even my small little IT company website.
Well, yeah, they're using all of the things that they expect people to use as a default. Admin, administrator, it's just all the standard stuff. And of course, they're looking for admin and password.
Mm-hmm. Which works a lot. It works a lot.
But I can't get over the amount of traffic, not just the invalid logins, but the probes and the scans looking for openings.
Mm-hmm. Open ports and all that. Yeah.
So you have to have an intrusion prevention program. So when you're vetting your host or your web designer or whoever you're using, ask them how they do intrusion prevention. Ask them how they maintain first of all, while you're writing it in, please ask them. Know that. I always love asking that question.
And it's also worth pointing out too that it really makes a difference what you're putting on your website.
Yes.
If you're not loading documents and things like that, then a lot of the stuff we're talking about is not so critical. If it's just a website with information, it's basically a digital business card. That's completely different.
Well, you still don't want it hacked to.
No, you don't want it hacked. But you're not having to deal with somebody hacking your website and then getting all of your documents that you have internally, unless you have your own web server sitting internally.
Yeah. That goes into where is it going to be hosted, and that matters.
So that's where your risk assessment comes in. Your services that you provide, whether it's if you have a web server sitting there or a file server or an Exchange server, all those things have to be looked at within your risk assessment to find out what are we giving people access to? Because as long as you have that Ethernet cable plugged in and you have that internet service, then the entire world has access to, at bare minimum, knock on the door.
Right, yeah. They can knock on the door. Or, we run into sites where they have it open to point to a server for remote access.
Oh, yeah, I see that a lot. Yep.
Well, in the probes for the websites, that's what it's going to pick up, and it's going to find that. But if you have somebody, and in the Panama Papers case, they had their informational website, and it had openings in it which linked to a client portal to allow the client to view their information and download it, that also wasn't secured, but they were able to get into that by going into the other one first. And the fact that they have all the emails is probably because then they found the email server and started pulling things from there. Mm-hmm. So it's not something you have to really, really worry about it if you're collecting information or sharing information. Number one, you have to worry about it enough. You have to be conscious of it. If it's just, let me tell you about my business, you want to protect your reputation and you don't want people who are coming to your site for information to get hit with ransomware or malware because they went to your site.
Mm-hmm. And you have to remember too, if you put a form on your site, then that form information typically is going to be saved somewhere. Mm-hmm. So if you have patients that are filling out that information and then it comes to you, then now all of a sudden you went from not having patient information to having patient information.
Yeah, where does that go?
Yeah, where's it going? And so it can get complicated.
Yeah, so you have to be asking questions. Mm-hmm. And so I made a list of the questions that I think you should ask, which is, what software are you using, and really understand. You get the names enough. You should hear some semblance of familiar names anyway. Mm-hmm. There's always a debate amongst technical people. What's the best way to do it? God forbid, but but if they're using a custom thing, then you need to understand that their really cool in-house tool that makes things so easy means if you have a problem with them, you're going to have to start over pretty much. At least that's my opinion. Mm-hmm. And then you need to understand, okay, how's it going to be hosted? So, we'll be happy to host it, but what we're going to do is we're going to put you on a server that we share with 15 other companies, so you're fighting for resources with them.
Yeah. Or if one of those other companies has a hack, then it could affect you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's been cases of that where one has a bad website that allows them to get in, and then it let them get to other ones on the shared server. Mm-hmm. Dum. I mean, the plot just thickens, and they have the data centers and how is yours structured? Because I know you do that where you have the space and then you also set up your clients on it. I don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I don't deal with the technical aspects of it directly, but I do have a colo location with a server inside of a hosting cage, and we only do VPS hosting, which is virtual private servers. So we have our own private server sitting there for our clients, and we don't put them on shared servers.
Because you know better.
Because I know better. Now, I'll have people, just in I guess disclosure here, I may have more than one company on that VPS, but these are all my clients and they're not clients of other people all on the same server.
Right. And you are managing them and monitoring them and taking care of the little babies so that they don't hatch new things.
Yeah. And not only can I monitor and manage the site, but I can monitor and manage the actual server, which you can't typically do yourself.
Right. Well, and then that's on ours. I mean, we use Liquid Web for our host, and they've got great support, so I don't have to manage the deep, technical stuff. Mm-hmm. But I get to manage all of the controls of the server and all that stuff. So it's nice. But you need to know that. I'm not saying you should do it yourself, but you need to know if they're handling it to that level. Mm-hmm. And if they say, oh, don't worry about it. We got this. They should be able to explain how they're doing it. And then what data are you capturing? Because, you talked about a form. Do you know how many different ways you can throw a form up on a website? Yeah. You can't even count them. I can't even imagine that anyone even knows how many different ways you can do it. Mm-hmm. And are you going to email that stuff? If you email it, what are you capturing? If you don't, how are you going to store it? Which is how the breach happened to the oral surgeon. They captured data and stored it on that web server right there and didn't secure it.
Yep. And if you don't know how to create a password, there's tools for that too.
Oh, please.
Get password generators or whatever. Don't use password 123 is not more secure than just password.
And don't use, like, for example, we're going to talk about WordPress because that's what we're most familiar with. On our sites, we don't have the admin is not admin.
No, yeah.
That user
never,
doesn't exist.
Yeah, never have a username admin.
Right. Don't do that. Not at all, because that's what then they don't have to figure out a username.
Yeah. My usernames are just as crazy as my passwords.
Okay, well, mine aren't that insane. They at least make sense when I see them. I know who it is.
No, mine are crazy. I use LastPass to generate everything.
Oh, no. How do you even know?
I don't know what.
How do you even know which one you're dealing with? You don't even know. You get some email or something, and it comes from squiggly lines.
I know. I mean, honestly, I log into them so frequently that I recognize them.
Now,
if you asked me to write them down, I couldn't tell you.
You get hit by a bus tomorrow, everybody's in trouble.
Yeah, you better know how to get to my LastPass account.
We have back doors set up for, they even have, that's the beauty of LastPass. They have a thing now for emergency access, an emergency access thing, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I think I set my wife up on that so that she could get into.
She's going to be happy.
Yeah,
I don't want to know that.
No, you dump all this stuff on me.
But knowing the passwords to your site or having it shared with you in LastPass or whatever is a very important thing, because if you have a problem and you can't get them to respond, you want to get in there and get control of that site. It's your site, and you want to make sure in your contract that you have control of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't care how good they are at design and SEO and all this other stuff. If you can't secure the site, somewhere down the road, you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay way more for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't you love? Here we're going to end with this for you, David. Here's a scenario that we had: is they had a really good web guy. That's when it starts with that, and it looked pretty. It had all kinds of stuff on it, but then when they wanted to change something, the web guy said, "Oh, well, that's going to cost $1,000 to put that one new picture on there."
Oh gosh.
And they didn't have the login or anything. And it went through. I told them, what? I'm not going to charge you $1,000 to slap a picture on there. I mean, I could tell it was WordPress and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you say to that guy to get it?
I would probably threaten his life. I don't know, other than it might be something where you'd have to get a lawyer to send a nice letter.
Well, eventually, they were able to pressure it and get it out of them, but it needs to be in your contract. You need to have a clue.
Yeah. It's, I don't function in that way, and stuff like that just baffles me.
I know.
That a bit, I can understand if you're trying to be shady, but some of these are people that have been in business. I mean, they're trying to run a business, and it doesn't make sense to me why you would do that. I want to make sure that the clients have full control to do whatever they want to do. If I'm not earning their business every month, then they should be able to go to somebody else that they want to do business with. Maybe it's not that they're dissatisfied. Maybe they just outgrew what I'm able to offer. I don't know. It shouldn't be painful for them to have to move, regardless of the reason.
Yeah, we went through helping a client move. They had gotten this really cool design. The site looked cool. Gotcha. I mean, looks cool. And it was a WordPress site, not, complicated. And it linked to their portal site, which is not being done by them. And get this, they paid, a substantial amount to make the pretty website, and then they were paying $300 a month for hosting, and it was just basically an information site. It wasn't an e-commerce site or anything. $300 a month.
Wow.
I was like, for what? What are you getting? And then we found out that it was like 2 releases back on updates, so that they were just taking them for a ride. And so we were able to port the website over to a reasonable hosting and saved them like $250 a month.
Yeah, that's another thing that's kind of hard to know and understand sometimes, is what are you getting for your money? Because you will see sites that are, $4.95 a month, $4.95 a month for hosting. And then you got somebody else who's charging, $100 a month for hosting. Why is that different? Why is it so much difference in price? And a lot of it is because of everything we talked about. Are you on a shared server versus a private server? What kind of speeds do you have? Because that's super important these days with Google and the way they index. Your site speed is as important as the content.
Almost. Well, it's important just to have interaction with people. I mean, if you're trying to get people to go, the latest studies show how it has to do with, what was it I told you? You got maybe from the time they initiate that they want to contact you to the time you have to grab them and keep them is 5 seconds.
Right. We are some impatient people.
Yeah. We're used to instantaneous. So the speed of your website matters now way more than anything. And those, $3 a month hosting and a basic site is, but there's a lot of people that still don't have a site.
Yep.
I don't get it. But at any rate, it is important to know.
Yep. So anyway, we hope we gave you something to think about today. We definitely went through a different topic. I'm sure there's some people that's like, oh man, not something else I have to worry about.
Yeah, but your website should be part of your risk analysis if it has any connection whatsoever. Well, really, I mean, you should evaluate your website. I don't care who's building it or who's maintaining it. The doctor did it. Better be checking it out.
Yeah. Or even for those listeners that are not even in healthcare, it should be something that you look at. Log into the back end if you can log in. If not, then reach out to your hosting company and say, when's the last time you did updates on this site? Because updates come out all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's something we manage every week.
Yep, all the time there are updates, and typically the updates come out. And when you look at the log file of what the update contains, it's fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this. It's not just new features. More often than not, they're fixing security holes and problems with it and all that. So that's our site for today. That's our show for today. That's our website for the day. If you enjoyed today's show, head on over to iTunes and rate it and give us a review. We much appreciate it, and share it out on your favorite social media platform. You can also find us on the web at helpmewithhippa.com or our newest URL or domain, since we're talking domains, thehippapodcast.com. It just redirects you to the same one. So anyway, I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody listening. We're getting a lot of great feedback on the podcast lately. It's awesome. So can't wait to introduce some other things we got coming up to you as well. Also, don't forget we have training on our website. For those of you who are looking for HIPAA training for covered entities and business associates, we have some awesome training there on the website that you can get a hold of. So remember, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.